Hello, my name is Kari Gunson. I'm a road ecologist with Eco-Kare International based in Peterborough, Ontario. And I will present on some road ecology work I and partners have conducted in the Rouge Urban National Park to make roads safer for wildlife. My colleague Leonardo Cabrera has or will be presenting on the same topic and will be giving a history of road ecology within the Rouge Park. The content for this presentation will begin with a summary of monitoring or surveying for wildlife on roads on selected roads in the northern region of Rouge Urban National Park. So that's primarily north of Steeles Avenue. Then we will go on to look at look at the methods and results for examining whether installation of exclusion fence was effective on the Scarborough-Pickering Town Line Road. Then we will end with recommendations for conducting and implementing a road ecology strategy within the park. The project occurs on the east end of the Greater Toronto Area between the towns of Pickering and Scarborough near Lake Ontario. So you can see that here highlighted in the green polygon. The park is bisected by several roads. Most prominent is the 401 on the southern end and the 407 that crosses through the middle. The red lines show where we monitored Reeser Road going north to south, which is 12 kilometers, Steeles Avenue in the southerly end, which is 4.5 kilometers, and Durham Road 5, which is 4.5 kilometers. We surveyed these roads for wildlife from May 12th to October 15th. We conducted 53 surveys. We did the surveys 3 times a week, and we did it by car, driving at 40 kilometers per hour. We drove both sides of the road for each survey. And just to say at this point that we did, by conducting surveys only starting in May, we missed possible amphibian migrations across these roads that would have occurred in April. This slide shows a summary of what we found on the 3 roads that we surveyed. The highest road mortality rate was on Steeles, which had the highest traffic rates, but this is observational as we did not obtain traffic volume data as part of the study. Durham Road 5 had the least traffic, again observational, and the road shoulders were wide, so motorist visibility was improved on this road, and possibly the response time or the ability to avoid hitting wildlife on this road would have been improved. This slide shows a summary of all the vertebrate roadkill that was found on the 3 roads by taxa. We are calling it roadkill at this point because all of the animals found were dead on the road. We can see that there were only 2 turtles found on the surveys, and these 2 were found in Steeles, shown at the top row. And there was a total of 242 animals found in the surveys from May to October, and mammals were the highest taxa killed, and these were comprised mostly of squirrels, chipmunks, raccoons, and muroids. Of note was a star-nosed mole that we found on Reeser Road, which we'll look at later in this presentation. So zooming in on Durham Road 5, we assembled all of the data together on each road, and we did a hotspot analysis using Siriema, a free software developed by Colhall et al. And on this road, we found 20 observations, and primarily these observations were in the yellow circles that are shown here. So the yellow circles show where the road bisects wetland, forest, drainage systems. And these roadkill were characterized by birds and small mammals. We did find 1 American toad, and we may find more along that road if we were to monitor in April. Steeles Avenue, there were 67 observations, and a lot of A lot of these were primarily clustered at the Little Rouge Creek, which you can see where Reeser and Steels bisect each other, where the red and orange lines are on the figure on the right. And this is characterized by a bridge. And so we think that the smaller animals are climbing up on the road and the birds are flying across. So we will zoom in on this in this figure, and this shows the hot spot that we were seeing at Little Rouge Creek with bridge crossing, but also with natural habitat to the east of the bridge crossing. And then we can see that the two painted turtles were killed in a similar location near a small fragment of forest habitat and a pond on the north side of the road. So we think that the painted turtles are either coming from the southerly to the north, or they're coming from the pond and looking for habitat. They were killed in the beginning of end of May and the beginning of June, one male and one female. So it's interesting to see those painted turtles in that fragmented habitat there. This slide shows Reeser Road north of 14th Ave. And these roadkill were quite diverse for such a fragmented habitat. Here is where we found that star-nosed mole that I showed you earlier. We also saw bats flying across the road within a forested canopy, and several species of birds, including robins, orioles, goldfinch, mallards, and a blue jay. There is potential for amphibian hotspots. We were seeing amphibians after rainfall along this road. Reeser Road South from 14th Ave is comprised of the Bob Hunter Memorial Park on the west side, and it also has Little Rouge Creek crossing, and that also goes southerly onto Steels that we showed you before. So here we were finding at the Little Rouge Creek crossing, we were finding several animals being killed here, but most specifically or most prominent was a snake migration that occurred in mid-October when we had 2 or 3 warm days registered at about 23 degrees Celsius. So we expect that this migration of red belly snakes, Decay's brown snakes, and garter snakes will likely occur routinely in each year. At this point, one may ask, why would we collect roadkill information on roads? One objective is to designate locations for crossing structures using this type of data. This slide shows where a wildlife overpass was built on Highway 69 in the boreal forest of Ontario, and this overpass was located where we knew black bears, moose, and deer were crossing a road. Also along Highway 69, there are 3 reptile or turtle tunnels, and they're the largest in the world at 3 meters by 3 meters for turtles. They have open medians with wetland vegetation. Each tunnel is 14 meters long. 3 tunnels vary in wetness, but all are situated in wetland habitat. Strong geotextile fence is attached to a larger animal fence to funnel turtles to these crossing structures. These tunnels were dedicated for turtles because they were all 3 of them were situated in wetland habitat. We found 67 freshwater turtles using the 3 tunnels in June over 4 years of monitoring, which is about 5.58 turtles per tunnel per year. One tunnel was preferred over the other 2 because it was situated directly in wetland habitat and had water in the tunnels all during the entire warm season. So we think that turtles are using that tunnel preferably because of the hydraulic connectivity. Now we will come back to Rouge Urban National Park. There was a nicely sized culvert, black circle, on the Scarborough-Pickering Town Line Road, which is located in the southeast end of the park. This was a known roadkill hotspot for many vertebrate species, including turtles. This shows that site, And we had previous surveying to show that all sorts of animals were crossing at this location. So with funding and led by the Toronto Zoo Adopt Upon and funding from the Ontario Species at Risk Stewardship Fund, we were able to install some exclusion fencing to funnel the turtles to this drainage culvert. We received roadkill data from several monitoring efforts conducted in the park over the past 10 years along the Pickering Town Line Road and other neighboring roads to examine whether the exclusion fence was effective at reducing roadkill. There was 340 meters of fence on both sides of the road, 190 meters on the east side and 150 meters on the west side. We looked at the roadkill over 3 scenarios for each taxa. Scenario 1 was we examined the roadkill before and after exclusion fence was installed when it occurred along both sides of the road, 150 meters. Scenario 2, we examined roadkill that occurred along the east side of the road where exclusion fencing was installed. So this would show the impact of roadkill when fence was only on one side. Scenario 3 was we added a 30-meter buffer to each end of the exclusion fence on the east side to show roadkill that occurred because of the fence end effect. There was not enough sample size for us to look at reptiles only, so we looked at amphibians. And what we found from conducting a Fisher's exact test with the 1 year of data before and the 1 year of data after was that amphibians roadkill significantly was reduced when fence occurred on both sides. However, not in scenario 2 when with the fence on only one side, and not with scenario 3 that shows the fence end effect. This is not surprising because often animals will go around the fence ends when the fencing is too short or does not span the entire habitat. Also of note was one snapping turtle that was roadkilled on the eastern side in August 2021, and this was where fencing only occurred on one side, showing the dangers of fencing only one side and not having jump outs for the animals that get onto the road. Our recommendations are to conduct annual maintenance, routine maintenance at the exclusion fence each year so that any cracks or gaps are taken care of so the animals cannot escape where exclusion fence occurs on both sides of the road. In addition, Scarborough Pickering Town Line Road will be undergoing a repavement project in the near future. So this is an opportunity to improve the exclusion fencing, to extend it, to also wrap it around Finch Avenue, and to possibly install more dedicated crossing structures for animals to get past the road safely. This slide shows the importance of conducting routine maintenance and adaptive management at an exclusion fence section. This is the monitoring results from back at Highway 69 where the 3 reptile tunnels occurred. You can see that when the fence was first installed in 2012, there was still roadkill occurring along the fence section. So once we were able to go in there and perform adaptive management and maintain the fence with the new road alignment and the hydrology changes that occurred, we were able to reduce the roadkill turtles by 2018 to 0. So we extended fence ends, we closed off gaps with rocks where water needed to get through, and to also exclude turtles. And we repaired exclusion fencing at one-way gates for large animals and things like that. Here we travel back to the Scarborough Pickering Town Line Road to the existing drainage culvert that occurred there. We monitored the culvert for wildlife passage for 2 years using existing reliable camera monitoring techniques. We installed a Reconyx camera to the top of the middle of the culvert. You can see in the top right picture here, because the culvert was 2 meters wide, we needed to install a rock wall fence underneath to funnel the animals underneath the camera field of view. So we set the camera to time lapse during the month of June every 15 seconds for 2 years, and we obtained turtle crossing data that we will summarize in the next slides. In 2020, we had 3 freshwater turtles use the crossing structure. And the slide at the top shows a snapping turtle crossing on June 4th, just prior to probably the peak of nesting season. And we also, on the bottom, show a painted turtle using the structure on the first day of September, and this turtle most likely moving back to its overwintering grounds in early fall. This slide shows the results in 2021. Again, we had about the same number of turtles. 2 painted turtles go through, and the 2 painted turtles occurred in mid-June, so we expect that that was possibly a nesting movement. And also a snapping turtle go through, which we expect was also a second pulse of a nesting movement, which coincided with when other turtles were moving for nesting in the rest of southern Ontario. And all these turtles crossed, did not turn around, because we did not capture them turning around in the cameras. Traveling back to the crossing structures that we monitored on Highway 69 for comparison, we found that there was 5.58 on average freshwater turtles using the larger reptile tunnels. And the adjacent smaller drainage culverts, which were about 2 meters wide and 1 meter high, had 1 to 2 turtles using the structure. However, this is not to say that there's more turtles using the top structure because it's larger. It could be because of a variety of reasons, and namely it could be because of the location of the crossing structure within the wetland habitat, and also the abundance of turtles that occur at that wetland habitat. It's very important to also monitor for abundance of animals in these types of comparisons. So in conclusion and summary, we provided recommendations to Rouge Urban National Park towards implementing or conducting a road ecology strategy. Some of these recommendations included monitoring designated road sections, transects along the roads in Rouge Urban National Park. And these would then be selected or targeted, varying in length, at areas where restoration has been completed, where mitigation measures for wildlife or hydrology occur, where they're existing, where they may be implemented, and so to allow us to do those kind of evaluations that we showed in this presentation. Also at stream crossings where Little Rouge Creek crosses, we would want to know what's being killed there, such as that snake migration, so that we can know that that occurs routinely, annually, and implement the most appropriate mitigation at that site. We need to gather partnerships and host workshops so that we can have road agencies involved. Without having the road agencies involved and educated and aware of what's going on, then we can't go into their roads that they look after and implement our strategies. Some of the strategies that occur at existing drainage culverts, even small box culverts, are wildlife ramps or terrestrial ramps that we can install inside to allow several different types of species to use the crossing, wet and dry crossings. And then you can see on the bottom here, again, back to Highway 69 is an example of a drainage crossing at Lovering Creek, where a ledge was built along the structure to allow a easy facilitated crossing by larger animals across the road through the stream crossing that existed anyway. So with that, I'm going to Hope to answer any questions. I think through the Q&A polls that will occur during this conference. I'll be touching base regularly, and thank you very much for listening, and thank you to the organizers of Making Roads Safer for Wildlife within the National Parks Office of Canada. Thank you very much, and have a great day.